It's Thursday, May 21st. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. A report finds the RCMP failed a Nova Scotia woman who was murdered by her neighbor 9 years ago. Why does the city of Halifax depend so much on home property taxes?
Mostly clear with the risk of frost tonight. Sunny conditions in the forecast heading into the weekend.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening. Before she was murdered by her neighbor nearly a decade ago, a Nova Scotia woman told the RCMP she had been sexually assaulted and harassed by him. Her complaints were not investigated, her fears ignored. Now the Force's Complaint Commission has released a report blaming the Mounties for failing her and also making dozens of recommendations to make sure it doesn't happen again. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness has the details.
But I, as the commanding officer for the province of Nova Scotia, do apologize to the family.
9 years after Susan Butland was killed by her neighbor, a report into her death and what preceded it has been released by the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission.
My first response is, well, how tragic this is, that this woman was sexually assaulted in some way and subsequently killed by the same suspect.
That suspect is Ernest Ross Jr. Duggan. Butland filed a sexual assault complaint with RCMP 2 months before her murder. Police investigated but didn't file charges. The CRCC report found serious failures in how the case was handled, calling the initial investigation grossly inadequate. Other findings say RCMP members did not take reasonable steps to keep Ms. Butland safe. She was treated without respect or care. They say police failed to investigate or properly document reports that Ms. Butland was being threatened and intimidated by the neighbor. And the RCMP did not warn her about these risks or take steps to protect her from the neighbor who ultimately took her life. RCMP members who investigated the complaint relied on harmful myths and stereotypes about sexual assault.
Well, the statement was very scathing, ultimately, and what it speaks to, I think, are a couple of different possibilities. One is training, one is ability, one is actually getting the job done.
The report also offered 79 recommendations, including creating specialized units in every division to handle and oversee sexual assault cases, review all past sexual assault investigations conducted by the member who took Ms. Butland's complaint, and ensure that he is not permitted to investigate sexual assault complaints until he has received all of the recommended operational guidance, and require training for all members who respond to or investigate sexual assault.
We have had significant advancement for those changes. As I mentioned, we've increased the amount of training, the trauma-informed approach that our officers use within these investigations.
The RCMP commissioner has agreed with a significant majority of the CRCC's findings and recommendations and committed to creating specialized sexual assault units.
And Todd Ernest Duggan pled guilty to second-degree murder in Butland's killing, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Todd.
Jonathan McGuinness leading us off in the newsroom tonight. Thank you for that, John. And we'll have some questions for the new Assistant Commissioner of the RCMP for Nova Scotia. That's just after 6:30. There is more on the report's findings. Visit our website, ctvnewsatlantic.ca. Okay, the other big story going on in the region right now, a fire is burning in the Lake Echo area. That's to the east of Dartmouth. Halifax fire crews are working the wildfire with 15 pieces of equipment, we're told. Let's go now to CTV's Stephanie Seacos, who is in the area. Stephanie, homeowners obviously watching this very closely. What's the current status of the fire?
Todd, we've been told by a firefighter on scene that the fire is now considered to be under control. And at this hour, there's no smoke that you can see in the sky here, though the smell of smoke is still a little bit lingering in the air. Now, a nearby homeowner told me earlier this afternoon when the fire first broke out that embers were falling onto his property. Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency received a call shortly after 1:30 for a fire in the area of Jenkins Boulevard. Officials said flames could be seen over trees. Now, members of the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Emergency Management were also on scene, as were the RCMP. The size of the fire has not yet been told to the public. And speaking with a homeowner earlier, we were told that he was told to be ready to evacuate, though at this time no evacuations have been ordered, but the public is still being told to stay away. Now, of course, I'll have any updates on this fire coming up tonight at 11:30, Todd.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. And of course, we'll come back to you if the situation changes considerably. And of course, updates at ctvnewsatlantic.ca. All right, it's been gusty in that part of Nova Scotia, the conditions making it tough to get on top of a wildfire. Let's bring in CTV meteorologist Kalen Mitchell. Kalen, you've been watching that. We're going to get to the frost in a minute, which seems unbelievable after the last couple of days.
I know.
But maybe you can touch on the conditions there.
Yeah, so some positives when it comes to the conditions. Temperatures coming down compared to yesterday. That's a plus, especially for any firefighting crews out there working, because, I mean, yesterday they wouldn't have been working out in that heat. That can also help with the fire itself. The other positive as we make our way through this evening and tonight is the breezy wind is going to be diminishing a little bit. It'll remain out of the northwest. We'll pick back up, though, for tomorrow afternoon to be similar to what it was today, and that did include some gusts around 30-40 kilometers per hour, so you'd like a lighter wind. And a negative is that there's no precipitation in the forecast. Very clear tonight, very sunny for both Friday and Saturday, even Sunday, a mix of sun and cloud, but maybe Monday into Tuesday of next week before we see some wet weather. Chilly conditions in the forecast, though, for tonight, and with the sky clearing and with a lighter wind, that is a recipe for some frost. Looking at the map here, this is for the overnight low temperatures. Areas highlighted faintly in through the blue have a lower risk of patchy frost, but that does include parts of Nova Scotia, maybe some interior areas of Prince Edward Island, and areas that head into the purples and pinks have a higher chance of seeing some frost, mostly northern and central areas of New Brunswick. We do have frost advisories in effect across the province of New Brunswick and across much of Nova Scotia. So if anybody does have some temperature-sensitive plants out and you're underneath one of those areas that are in a frost advisory, if you can cover them up or bring them inside, tonight would be a good night to do so. Here's a look at the average dates of last frost around the Maritime region. And you can see that parts of the Maritimes are coming up towards the average date of last frost. So for some areas that extends into early June. And keep in mind that just by being an average, it means that some years frosts have occurred past this date. If we want to take a look at some dates where there's an even lower chance of some frost, here is a map approximately for the Maritimes when there's a 10% chance of frost or less, 10% or less chance. And you can see that for a good portion of the Maritimes, that's going to be like early to mid-June. In some cases, though, in the north of New Brunswick, there has been some frost as late in the season as early July. You know, for the Maritimes, that general rule of the full moon in June is typically a pretty good one when it comes to frost concerns, although this year, the full moon is coming up at the end of the month, Todd. So, you know, you'd really be safe if you're waiting for that June full moon this year in the Maritimes before, you know, not worrying about the frost anymore.
Yeah. Okay, we will check in with you for the full forecast a little later in the show. Thank you. 2 people have been charged in the death of a child in Eskasoni First Nation. The child died suddenly at a home in the community last August. A 37-year-old woman and a 42-year-old man, both from Eskasoni, are facing charges of failing to provide the necessities of life and criminal negligence causing death. The suspects were released on conditions. They are due to appear in Eskasoni Provincial Court. That will take place in June. Months after a dozen volunteer Sackville firefighters turned in their pagers, stepping away from active duty, the future of the department is still a major issue in the Tantramar area. An independent legal probe examined allegations ranging from policy violations and workplace toxicity to issues of leadership within the service. The municipality is now reviewing the findings with legal counsel to determine next steps, which will be presented to the incoming council. They are advising the public the priority remains safe and reliable protection services for that part of New Brunswick. We continue our reporting on breast cancer screening in Nova Scotia tonight. The health minister earlier today could not escape questions about mammogram wait times. She was forced to explain what the province is doing to address so-called chokeholds in the system. CTV's Vanessa Wright has more.
Hilary Doucette has had a mammogram every year since she turned 40. It's something she's grown accustomed to with her family history of breast cancer. So when she got the call last August that her routine mammogram was being put off to December 2026, she started making calls.
You have to advocate for yourself, which is a very unfortunate state of affairs in this province right now.
She managed to get her mammogram appointment moved up by 1 year.
I don't think that women should have to wait well over a year to get a mammogram, especially when you're presenting with a lump or something that is not right in your body and you know that it's not right. The consequences of hurry up and waiting and not staffing these positions promptly can lead to death. That is the reality that we are facing right now as women in this province.
That new appointment confirmed she had invasive stage 2, grade 2 ductal carcinoma. Looking back, she can't help but wonder what would have happened if she hadn't pushed for an earlier appointment.
Where would I be? Would it be stage 4? I mean, it was stage 2 when they found it. So where would it be in December of 2026?
Today, Health Minister Michelle Thompson defended the province's efforts and said they are actively recruiting radiation technologists.
We know that this is a very in-demand profession, and we've been working at recruitment internationally and obviously domestically.
As for the long wait times,
they vary across the province, and certainly there are wait times. Last quarter wait times are posted on the wait time website so people can see, and some places do have shorter wait times.
But that doesn't satisfy people like Doucette who feel forced to take matters into their own hands.
A message to women is, listen, be your own voice. Don't take no for an answer. Call, make calls, call the complaint line. Do everything that you can to advocate for yourself because your life is valuable.
Vanessa Wright, CTV News, Halifax.
Staying with healthcare, it's a medication that can stop a heart attack. Paramedics in Nova Scotia already have access to so-called clot busters for patients being rushed to hospital. Now New Brunswick is jumping on board. CTV's Nick Moore now on what it could mean for patients and paramedics.
Every second counts if you're having a heart attack, and what happens between a 911 call and arriving at the ER can mean life or death. The New Brunswick government says it will commit up to $2.5 million to equip advanced care paramedics with pre-hospital thrombolytics for patients who are experiencing certain types of heart attacks. The medications are also known as clot busters.
It goes right to the clot, dissolves it, and instantly you have an improvement in flow to that area of the heart.
The medication can also help to prevent permanent heart damage from a cardiac event.
That means at the end of it all, they come out with a heart that hasn't had muscle or tissue damage to the same extent.
This was on Premier Susan Holt's radar back when she was leader of the official opposition.
We put it right into our next budget and then started the process of developing the guidelines, making sure we had clear processes for how this would be deployed.
Paramedics are already administering these medications in Nova Scotia, along with British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. Health Minister Dr. John Dornan says there was at one time skepticism in the medical community about these types of pre-hospital interventions.
35 years ago, I did not know the risks, the benefits, the route of administration, so I was nervous. Now we have a team that knows all those things. They know the indications, they work with the team, they know how to do it, they know the ups and downs of it.
Paramedics have been begging for the ability to administer these medications to patients who need it.
Paramedics tell us they want to do more in healthcare, they want more opportunities to help out our system. So when we give paramedics more opportunity, then we will see them want to stay in their careers longer. The average lifespan of a career in New Brunswick for a paramedic is about 8 years, which is not a long time.
Ambulance New Brunswick will begin using thrombolytics this summer. Nick Moore, CTV News, Fredericton.
Here's a sobering statistic. Property taxes make up most of Halifax's budget to run the city, much more than others in Canada, and far too much, according to the deputy mayor, who says it's holding Halifax back. CTV's Calvin Smith explains.
Less than 2 months ago, Halifax councillors signed off on a 9.5% increase to the municipal portion of property tax bills. Speaking at the State of the Municipality address, Deputy Mayor Patty Cuddle said the province and municipality may be aligned on priorities, but alignment is needed on funding too.
What we're figuring out is that growth is not paying for growth. So when you need to raise rates, to raise revenue, to deliver on projects for future development, really, you know, it's like existing residents paying for future growth. And that's not how rates and taxes are supposed to work.
About 71% of the city's operating revenue comes from property taxes, or 82% with other tax agreements and payments in lieu, putting HRM near the top of cities relying on property taxes, with Moncton atop municipalities' HRM staff reviewed at 88%, CBRM at 77%, St. John's 59%, and only 35% in Toronto and Winnipeg. The mayor has already been tasked with penning a letter to the province seeking a review of funding contributions to the municipality.
It's tremendously important. We're all suffering. I mean, every level of government, but, you know, we're sitting here closest to the people with no means to gather any more, funding.
User fees is one alternative to increase revenue. Yarmouth Mayor Pam Mood says 75% of her town's operating budget comes from property taxes. The past president of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities wants fiscal change.
It touches every single municipal unit, which means that it affects every single citizen. We need to have those conversations, obviously, with the province and see, what else can happen.
The Nova Scotia government didn't respond to CTV's questions by deadline today.
I'd say it's more of a structural issue than a provincial one or a federal one, though all municipalities are creatures of statute. The fundamental issue is I don't know if there is any exact perfect model of taxes.
The Taxpayers Federation says it boils down to politicians spending in the most cost-effective way. Now, Todd, it was only about half hour before airtime when a provincial spokesperson got back to us saying, in part, the government delivered a renegotiated service agreement, the first in 30 years, which removed certain mandatory costs. But as you can tell from municipal officials, that's not enough. Todd.
Amazing numbers there, Callum. 88% for Moncton, 59% for St. John's, and what, 35% for Winnipeg?
Winnipeg and Toronto, 35.
Wow.
Quite the difference.
Yeah, that's something. Callum Smith at Halifax City Hall right now. Thank you. Let's stay on this theme. A review of New Brunswick's property assessment system has found it's operating according to international best practices. Now, that's from a third party that conducted a review. The International Property Tax Institute made 39 recommendations. Among them, it said homeowners in New Brunswick need help understanding the difference between assessments and property taxes. The review is part of the government's larger property tax reform. Well, maybe you spotted it on your commute. There are long lineups at some gas stations around the region right now. CTV's Avery McRae tells us why.
Never before have St. Johners been more excited to fill their tank for $1.87.
Look at the cars here, crazy.
The lengthy lineups were because of Circle K's Fuel Days. The promotion pinched pennies for motorists, who saved 10 cents a liter from 3 this afternoon until 7 this evening.
It's down some, but it should be down more and it should stay down. It's quite frustrating. Seeing as how I'm driving the truck, I don't get very many kilometers to the gallon.
The promotion was a Canada-wide event. Nova Scotians were limited to just 100 liters of fuel per vehicle. Prince Edward Islanders had to pay before fueling, while New Brunswickers had no restrictions. The average driver is saving around $5 a tank. It's a small saving, but long lines at the pumps prove every dollar matters.
It's really not about gas promotion. It's actually more about generating traffic.
University of New Brunswick marketing professor Yunchijing Yu says gas retailers make little off their fuel sales and rely more on selling lottery tickets and tobacco products to generate money. She believes Fuel Days pays for itself.
Every news story, every social media post of the lineup, every did you hear about Fuel Day, conversations like that, that's actually, doing a lot more PR and branding work that Circle K didn't have to pay for at all.
But come 7:01, gas will go back to nearly $2 a liter, which is having a big impact on people's bottom line.
And you think that just a few months ago we were paying significantly less, and now all of a sudden it's jacked up, and it's, for the average person, it's cutting deep into their pockets, and that's not really a fun thing for them.
Todd, gas prices are likely to change in all 3 maritime provinces tomorrow. With most places already seeing prices at over $2 a liter, people I spoke with today would like to see the 10-cent savings stick around. But even if a cent comes off tomorrow, they'll take it, Todd.
Yeah, no doubt they will. All right, thank you for that. Avery McRae at the pumps in the Port City for us. Going to take a short break now. Still to come, Kalen's back with his forecast as we inch towards the weekend. And a hockey hero pays a visit to Moncton. Stay with us.
And this is your Campfire Conditions Report brought to you by Pine Acres RV, where customers become friends. These provincial restrictions valid until 2 p.m. on May 22nd. No change for New Brunswick, so still open in Restigouche and Gloucester counties, but the rest of the province for campfires restricted to the hours of 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. For the province of Nova Scotia, campfires in Category 1 burning restricted to the hours of 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. And for Prince Edward Island, the province is open to campfires, but domestic brush burning is restricted to the hours of 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. for Kings County, 2 p.m. to 8 a.m. for Queens County, and Prince County is currently closed for domestic brush burning. Remember, as well as checking in on provincial restrictions, to check in on any municipal restrictions and bylaws.
The city of Halifax has begun assessing hemlock trees for an invasive insect. The hemlock woolly adelgid poses a serious threat and can result in widespread tree loss. Eastern hemlock trees in parks and forested areas, including the popular Hemlock Ravine, will be marked with brightly colored flagging tape. A small amount of regulated insecticide will be injected directly into the affected trees. Meanwhile, a Dartmouth lake is being treated with an herbicide in an effort to control an invasive plant. Yellow floating heart has spread throughout Little Albro Lake in recent years. An herbicide was first applied to the lake. It was a couple of years ago, but some plants remain. So a second dose of the herbicide will be applied in late June. The city says the risk to humans and animals is low, but public access to the lake will be restricted out of caution.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
One of hockey's most recognizable names was in Moncton today. Marc-Andre Fleury joined former NHLer Maxime Talbot in the city for the Heart and Stroke Foundation event. The pair signed autographs. There was a silent auction that helped raise money for Heart and Stroke. Fleury was returning to the Maritimes, where, of course, he played 3 seasons with the then Cape Breton Screaming Eagles before being picked first overall in the 2003 NHL draft. That launched a career that includes 3 Stanley Cups, a Vezina Trophy, and more than 575 career wins over 21 seasons. Both Fleury and Talbot also say they were very excited to be back in the Maritimes.
I'm just happy to be back. You know, I haven't been back in the Maritimes for such a long time, and like Max said, it's so many good people. You know,
Try to be innovative and different, and try to give people a chance to see their childhood hero while raising money for a great cause.
Talbot and Fleury, great fellows, very entertaining. I can see why they were always getting lots of laughs in the locker room.
What I love about this part of the country is the community. You know, people get together for causes. They feel like they support the community, and it's fun.
Still a couple of hams, clearly. Tonight's event at Casino New Brunswick is sold out. Organizers saying support for heart and stroke programs and research has been overwhelming. That will be a fun night. A new boat school is now making waves on the Halifax waterfront. The imposing new facility on the boardwalk will help the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic meet the growing demand for hands-on boat building programs and on-the-water experiences for underserved youth. For the last 10 years, the programs were held in the small boat sheds at the back of the museum.
A boat school focused on serving kids at risk from underserved communities. It's a project that nobody has said, this is a stupid idea. Everyone that we've talked to about it has loved it, and people who love something are willing to give to support it.
The boat school is supported through a mix of public and private funding, totaling more than $15 million. May not be a night to be out on the water. Risk of frost in some areas. Kaylin has the details right after this commercial break. Gorgeous conditions right now at Crescent Beach near Lockport, where it is currently 14 degrees, a bit of cloud, but a bit of blue sky and lots of wide open beach.
Not a lot of wave action.
And not a lot of wave action, that's right. CTV meteorologist Kaylin Mitchell joins us now, and before we talk about frost, and I can't believe we're talking about frost, we always have this date marked on the calendar. The Canadian Hurricane Center issued its annual look at the season to come, and the headline is what?
The forecast for this year's 2026 Atlantic hurricane season is for a below-average season. So here's a look at the numbers put out by NOAA, as well as Canadian Hurricane Center for today. The expectations are for 8 to 14 named storms. Those could be tropical storms. And of those 8 to 14, 3 to 6 becoming hurricanes. And of those 3 to 6, maybe 1 to 3 of those becoming major hurricanes. That's category 3 or higher. You can see that is a little bit below the season average numbers. And a little bit below last year when it comes to especially major hurricanes. Last year we didn't get as many storms as they were predicting, but we did get quite a few that rapidly intensified and became quite strong.
Now, what's behind this? Is there anything that's sparking this? Or
absolutely. Competing factors this year include working in favor of more hurricanes developing, warmer Atlantic Ocean waters, and lighter trade winds. But the big thing working against storms developing this year, El Nino. There's big El Nino expected to develop. Those are warmer waters in the western equatorial Pacific, and they increase the amount of wind shear over the Atlantic basin. And that wind shear likes to tear these storms apart before they can really get going. So because of El Nino, it's the major factor in a below average year. Here's a quick look at the list of names that are expected to be used this year. It begins with Arthur and it ends with Wilfred. There is a backup list of names should we go through them all, but hopefully that won't be the case. One other thing I wanted to mention, of course, just the climatology for these storms. The hurricane season begins on June 1st, but the frequency of the tropical storms and hurricanes doesn't really ramp up until we get to August and then into September and the first part of October. And then after that, hurricane season comes to an end at the end of November. All right, let's talk about our short-term forecast here in the Maritimes and for tonight. Clearing, the winds becoming lighter, winds turning, or temperatures turning cooler, and that's going to give us that risk of frost. We talked about earlier about how there's frost advisories out for the province of New Brunswick and a large area of Nova Scotia. Start of the day for tomorrow is going to be sunny and cool for the Maritimes, moving into and through the afternoon. It remains mostly sunny with a breezy northwest wind and rather clear conditions expected heading into Friday evening and Friday night. And Saturday looking sunny, area of high pressure in place. Winds of the forecast coming up for Friday. They'll be out of the northwest as we make our way into the afternoon. Gusts coming up to the range of 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Maybe peaking as high as 50 for a few areas, coastal areas up around the northeast of New Brunswick, including the Acadian Peninsula, and maybe a few parts of the east of Nova Scotia around the North Shore and locations in Cape Breton. Low temperatures for tonight for much of the Maritimes, falling down to the range around the low to mid single digits. Some in the north of New Brunswick between around -2 and +2. And then in the forecast for tomorrow, high temperatures in the north of New Brunswick, mostly between 14 and 17 degrees, with central and southern parts of that province with high temperatures between 14 and 18, mildest in the southwest. Prince Edward Island for tomorrow with high temperatures 10 to 14 degrees for the province. It'll be a cool morning. It'll be sunny through the day. In the east of Nova Scotia for tomorrow for Cape Breton, highs between 7 and 11 and low teens for parts of the eastern shore and north shore of mainland Nova Scotia. Northern and central parts of the province with high temperatures between 14 and 16 degrees. In the Annapolis Valley, high temperatures near 16, 14 for Digby. And for the south shore and southwest of Nova Scotia, high temperatures 13 to 16. Here's a look at the 7-day outlook, beginning first with New Brunswick. We've got sunshine in the forecast there for Saturday. High temperatures up to the high teens, maybe a few touch on 20 degrees. Mix of sun and cloud on Sunday. High temperatures in the high teens and low 20s. Temperatures cool for Monday with some rain expected. That's followed by a chance of showers on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week and a mix of sun and cloud for Thursday. For Nova Scotia, in the forecast for Saturday, the start of the weekend, sunny, high temperatures, mostly around the mid to high teens, a little bit cooler on parts of the coast. Temperatures come up a few more degrees for Sunday, a mix of sun and cloud. Rain in the forecast for Monday, temperatures cooler as a result. Then a chance of showers on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week and cloudy periods on Thursday. And for Prince Edward Island, that area of high pressure in place into the start of the weekend. So it's sunny on Saturday, highs near 12, up to 18 on Sunday with a mix of sun and cloud. Rain in the forecast for Monday, chance of showers Tuesday and Wednesday, cloudy periods on Thursday of next week. Todd.
Thank you, Kalen. We'll see you at the end of the show for the Wake Up Weather. Next, the new Assistant Commissioner of the RCMP in Nova Scotia joins us to talk about that report critical of the force. Stay with us.
Okay, so we're back at it tomorrow. Virgin Radio's 5K day for your chance to win $5,000.
Those keywords start with us after 7 a.m.
And around 7:30, get a shot at $50 to St. Louis Bar and Grill. Good luck.
Welcome back. Tonight we're joined by newly appointed Assistant Commissioner of the RCMP in Nova Scotia, Dan Morrow. He takes over for Dennis Daly, who retired in March. Assistant Commissioner, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Congratulations on your posting. It's only been a couple weeks.
That's correct, yes.
I'd like to talk to you about the report that was released today. It's certainly frank in its assessment of how the force conducted itself through this case, using terms like mishandling the investigation, grossly inadequate, failed Susie Butlin. Do you accept that?
Yes, I do. And thank you for asking that. When there's this level of significant findings, the impact that it's had to Miss Butlin's family, friends, extended community members, I really wanted to start with my sincere condolences to the family.
79 recommendations. Will the force implement them?
Absolutely.
All of them?
Yes, the Nova Scotia RCMP's made significant advancements already towards those recommendations.
Okay. Multiple officers, a report found, looked at the case. None recommended charges at the time. Does that indicate a systemic bias within the force that has to be dealt with?
I think what the report clearly articulated was a lack of understanding regarding some of the myths associated to sexual assault investigations were relied upon. And from there, that's what we've really focused on learning from, is that we've created additional training for our officers. We've added additional oversight and governance over sexual assault investigations by, for instance, increasing the number of supervisor positions, our subject matter experts that can provide that guidance and assistance of frontline resources, or if the case is complex enough, they would actually take on the investigation themselves.
Okay. The report went on to say, and I'm quoting it here, the RCMP has not taken sufficient action to improve the quality of sexual assault investigations. Has that changed? Do you see a change? How do you plan to improve that?
Yeah. So yes, we have had significant advancement for those changes. As I mentioned, we've increased the amount of training, the trauma-informed approach that our officers use within these investigations, along with those subject matter experts that can either take over control of the investigation or provide that additional oversight. I would also like you to comment about plans going forward. Another new objective that was created shortly around 2019 was the creation of our external sexual assault review committee. So that's a number of advocates that sit around the committee. They review our sexual assault investigations where charges have not been laid, and they look for gaps or challenges that the police or other external bodies can improve upon.
I'm wondering if this is the same. It calls for creating specialized units to investigate sexual offenses in each jurisdiction.
Right. So the external committee that I just referenced, that probably isn't what they're referring to. What they're referring to is more appropriate about the internal. So our subject matter experts, we've created new positions throughout the province to focus on sexual assault investigations and intimate partner violence. The two combine for what we would refer to as gender-based violence. So those Supervisory positions are out there to supplement the additional layers to supervision, increase our accountability, and maintain that public trust that we need to maintain.
Earlier you mentioned, and the report again lays it out, about myths surrounding sexual offense. Can you talk a bit about what you mean by that?
So actually a lot of my learning from this comes from our external advocates. The sexual assault myths, or the myths that quite often are referred to within either investigations or advocacy groups. Sometimes there's what's called victim blaming, a lack of credibility. Sometimes there might have been a delay in coming forward. Those are just myths. And really the report, as you've mentioned, was quite blunt about it, and rightfully so. Those should never kind of been brought into an investigative standard, and that's what we have learned from to increase our training surrounding those.
You mentioned that you would be the force is willing to implement the recommendations. What kind of timeline would you see for that?
We've actually already implemented basically all of them here within Nova Scotia.
Okay. Does the force owe an apology to the Butland family?
I can't speak on the force's behalf, but I, as the commanding officer for the province of Nova Scotia, do apologize to the family.
Okay, but in terms of an official apology from the force that might come from
I haven't had those
HQ,
discussions.
that hasn't been discussed. I mentioned that you're new into the position, just a few weeks now. What's your priority? Obviously this, we've just been talking about, but what other priorities do you have for your tenure?
That's a very broad question, Todd. It's and to summarize it in a short response, I want to ensure that our employees feel safe within their work environment and have the right equipment to perform their jobs professionally, to maintain that accountability for the province of Nova Scotia as we service the needs for Nova Scotians. And when I say that, it sounds easy, but we really have to start at the ground level by listening to our community stakeholders. And I know our detachment commanders, I've got a pride and confidence in all of them throughout the province as they engage with our external partners to identify their needs and work towards addressing them.
I should mention that you've been in the province of Nova Scotia since, well, it's almost 20 years, coming up on 20 years' time in Eskasoni, around the province, and now, of course, you're at headquarters in Dartmouth. Assistant Commissioner, thank you very much for your time. Certainly appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. Thank you.
We will take a break. That's the Assistant Commissioner of the RCMP in Nova Scotia. We'll be right back.
Murphy's Logic is brought to you by Kent Building Supplies. Look what we've built together. The opinions expressed in this segment are solely those of the commentator. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of this station, CTV News, Bell Media, or its employees.
Tonight, the debate over taxes, tolls, and user fees. Steve Murphy has some thoughts on what works best as our provincial governments battle big deficits.
It's often quoted, but Winston Churchill did not actually say there is no such thing as a good tax. He did say that for a nation to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself by the handle. No doubt our tax dollars fund many good and important things, but the point is, few among us enjoy paying taxes, especially for things we don't approve of or don't use. Which is why tolls are sometimes an appropriate and attractive alternative. New Brunswick's plan to impose tolls near the Nova Scotia border has rankled more than a few people, notably Nova Scotians, who see it as some sort of provincial admission fee. But the rationale is that drivers who don't pay taxes to New Brunswick should pay to use the province's roads. Out-of-province drivers have been paying to use Nova Scotia's Cobequid Pass for years. That road wouldn't have been built without tolls, which were initially paid to the private sector developer. Truth is, in certain circumstances, user fees are fundamentally more fair than taxes. And the principle is pretty simple. People who make use of a service should pay more than those who don't. And those who are required or use a given service frequently can also be given discounts or exemptions, as Nova Scotia has recently done with the Cobequid Pass. Regrettably, Nova Scotia has also eliminated tolls on the Halifax Harbour bridges and in hospital parking lots, fulfilling political promises made during the last election campaign, even as the province's debt explodes. That's certainly not a good tax for the people who never or seldom use those services, who will also now share in the cost of maintaining them. Modern Canada has long favored universality in the delivery of government services without so many fees and tolls. But as governments struggle with their finances, this is a good time to consider whether more user fees, including road tolls, should be integrated into the revenue stream as an alternative to broadly higher taxes. I'm Steve Murphy.
And Steve will return. In health headlines, generic versions of Ozempic are arriving in Canadian pharmacies, giving patients cheaper options for diabetes treatment and off-label weight loss use. CTV's Amanda Debison has more in tonight's edition of The Lifeline.
Generic versions of Ozempic are beginning to arrive at pharmacies across the country this week. Health Canada recently approved semaglutide products from Apotex and Dr. Reddy's. Apotex says its product will cost about 1/3 the price of brand name Ozempic, which can cost hundreds of dollars each month. Some pharmacy chains say supplies are starting to reach distribution centers and stores. Experts say patients paying out of pocket will likely see benefits first, while insurers update their coverage plans. Canadian aid workers are on their way to Congo to help with the country's deadly Ebola outbreak. The rare strain of Ebola in the outbreak has no cure and no vaccines. The Canadian Red Cross's Halifax-based operations lead hopes to arrive in the next few days, but a team of public health and logistics experts are already en route to help with contact tracing, psychological support, and helping people get to treatment centers. Finally, a major new study finds Quebecers really love their cheese. The provincial government-funded study of Quebec's eating habits describes itself as the biggest project of its kind on the nutrition and health of the Quebec population. Researchers analyzed nearly 7,000 people and more than 26,000 meals through the Nutri-Quebec project. Apples, potato chips, cheese, and bananas ranked among the most common snacks. The report also found bread contributes nearly as much sodium to diets as sauces and seasonings. Researchers say the findings will help shape future public health and nutrition policies. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Debison for The Lifeline.
With Aaron and Peter. Well, tomorrow is Friday, which means another edition of Foodie Friday at 8 o'clock.
And it's the most maritime thing ever, but with a twist.
The B&M Business Report is not available this week, but we can look at how the stock markets fared. So let's begin in Toronto, where the TSX was up 247 points, closing at 34,409. The Dow Jones ended the day up 276 points to 5,285. And the Canadian dollar traded hands down slightly to 72.55. And you can visit bnmbloomberg.ca for the top business stories of the day. Kayla Mitchell is on the weather deck. He's not going to make me read temperatures.
No, I'm not. A little bit of a jacket returns out here to the weather deck this evening as temperatures have come down compared to yesterday. Our viewer picture for tonight, though, this is a beautiful one. This is coming in from Eskasoni, Nova Scotia, sent in by Lucy White. We've got the No Mow May signs there, and that, of course, is to remind people that sometimes, you know, leaving those early season dandelions and the early season clover up can help out the pollinators, like the bees, at this time of the year. So I want to thank Lucy White very much for sharing this picture with us. And again, for tomorrow, it's a sunny day, high temperature near 13 degrees. Start of the day for tomorrow, sunny but cool around the Maritime region. Morning temperatures mostly around the low to mid single digits. Moving into the afternoon, most of the high temperatures will be around the low to mid-teens, so it might be a little bit warmer than that in the southwestern corner of New Brunswick. Lots of sunshine and a northwest wind with some gusts between 20 and 40 kilometers per hour. Let's find out what's ahead on your Morning Atlantic.
Friday on Your Morning Atlantic, TikTok.
Yeah, the warmer weather means the little parasites could be a big problem. We'll get some timely advice to protect you and your loved ones.
Start your morning with us Friday on Your Morning Atlantic on CTV2 and Crave.
That's our look at the day here at home. Stephanie Seacos is in the chair at 11:30. I'm Todd Battis. Hope to see you tomorrow night. Till then, have a good evening.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast. Watch live on Crave.